The Great Reset in XRP, a new financial system. Every few generations, the world faces a moment when the existing financial order can no longer sustain itself. Today, we stand on the edge of such a moment, a looming Great Reset. Global debt has surged past 300 trillion. Inflation and currency devaluation erode trust in fiat money. Central banks struggle to stabilize economies while governments search for tools to restore confidence. The system that carried us through the 20th century is reaching its breaking point. But with crisis comes opportunity. Just as Bretton Woods reshaped finance after World War II and the abandonment of the gold standard reset the 1970s, the 2020s are poised for another historic shift. This time, the catalyst isn't war or oil, it's technology. Blockchain networks, digital currencies, and tokenization are rewriting the rules of money itself. And at the center of this transformation lies a single question: what asset will anchor the new financial system? Some point to central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, as the answer. With over 100 central banks exploring or piloting CBDCs, the digital dollar, euro, or yuan could replace paper cash and modernize payments. Others look to stablecoins, already moving trillions on public blockchains as the on-ramps for digital finance. But neither CBDCs nor stablecoins solve the core problem of interoperability. They digitize money, but they don't connect it. This is where XRP emerges as the dark horse candidate for the reset. Unlike Bitcoin, which positions itself as digital gold, or Ethereum, which powers decentralized apps, XRP was engineered to be the bridge. Neutral, efficient, and already adopted by institutions through RippleNet, XRP doesn't replace national currencies. It connects them. It doesn't mimic fiat. It settles fiat. In a world where the next system must handle tokenized assets, CBDCs, and cross-border flows in real time, XRP's architecture looks less like an experiment and more like destiny. The idea of a great reset sparks controversy. To some, it's a conspiracy, a shadowy plan by elites to control the world's wealth. To others, it's a pragmatic reality. The math of debt, inflation, and inefficiency cannot continue indefinitely. Whatever one believes, the fact remains that the system must evolve. The only question is how, and which technologies will shape its foundation. This documentary explores the Great Reset and XRP's potential role as the backbone of a new financial order. Why debt, inflation, and inefficiency are pushing the old system to collapse. How CBDCs and tokenization set the stage for a digital-first economy. Why XRP's neutrality and efficiency make it the leading candidate for global settlement. And the long arc of history. Will XRP quietly become the plumbing of a reset financial system, just as SWIFT became the plumbing of the old one? The world may not agree on the timing or the details, but one thing is clear. The next financial system will be digital, interoperable, and global. And XRP may be the bridge that carries us into it. This is the story of the Great Reset and XRP, a new financial system. Part 1. The cracks in the old financial order. The modern financial system was born in the ashes of World War II. At Bretton Woods in 1944, world leaders established the US dollar as the backbone of global trade, pegged to gold and supported by the strength of the American economy. For decades, this arrangement delivered stability and growth, but no system lasts forever. In 1971, the gold peg collapsed, ushering in the fiat era, a system built not on scarcity but on trust. That trust has eroded. In the decades since, governments have leaned on money printing to fund wars, welfare, and bailouts. Central banks manipulated interest rates to stabilize economies, but often created new bubbles in the process. The result is a world drowning in debt, over $300 trillion globally, more than 3 times the size of the world economy itself. This debt isn't shrinking, it's compounding. Inflation compounds the problem. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, governments unleashed trillions in stimulus, flooding the system with liquidity. Prices surged, currencies weakened, and citizens around the world began to lose faith in the money in their pockets. From the Turkish lira to the Argentine peso, hyperinflation devastated savings. Even the mighty US dollar showed cracks as deficits soared and interest payments on debt spiraled. Technology has further exposed these inefficiencies. In a world where emails arrive instantly and information travels at the speed of light, the global payment system still relies on SWIFT, a decades-old messaging network that takes days to settle cross-border transactions. Banks hold trillions in pre-funded accounts just to grease the wheels of trade, locking up capital that could otherwise fuel growth. The cracks aren't just economic, they're geopolitical. Nations are increasingly questioning the dominance of the US dollar in global trade. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has openly discussed alternatives. Sanctions have weaponized the dollar, pushing adversaries to seek new systems. The financial order that once symbolized stability now feels fragile, politicized, and outdated. And then comes the elephant in the room: trust. Trust in governments to manage debt responsibly. Trust in central banks to control inflation. Trust in banks to safeguard deposits. Each financial crisis erodes this trust further, from the 2008 collapse to recent banking failures in the US and Europe. The system hasn't collapsed yet, but the foundation looks increasingly unstable. These cracks set the stage for change. When debt is unsustainable, inflation undermines confidence, and geopolitics fracture unity, history shows that resets are inevitable. The world doesn't get to choose whether a reset happens, only how. Into this environment steps blockchain and digital assets, not as replacements for fiat, but as solutions to the inefficiencies and trust gaps that the old system can no longer ignore. And among them, XRP emerges as a candidate not to topple the system, but to bridge it into the future. The cracks in the old financial order are undeniable. The question now is whether they will widen into collapse, or whether they will be filled by new rails that restore stability and trust. Part 2. CBDCs, Tokenization, and the Digital Shift. If the cracks in the old financial system are clear, so too is the direction of the solution: digitization. Around the world, central banks, governments, and corporations are racing to bring money and assets fully onto digital rails. The movement isn't about speculation. It's about efficiency, control, and survival in a system that can no longer function with paper processes and outdated infrastructure. At the center of this transformation are central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Over 100 central banks are researching or piloting them. China leads with its digital yuan, already live in multiple regions and integrated into domestic payments. The European Central Bank is pushing forward with the digital euro, while the US debates a digital dollar. Each CBDC promises faster payments, improved traceability, and better monetary control. Governments see CBDCs as a way to modernize their economies while preserving sovereignty in a digital age. Yet CBDCs also raise questions. Will they create new forms of surveillance, giving governments visibility into every transaction? Will they fragment into digital islands with little interoperability between countries? And most importantly, will they solve the liquidity trap of cross-border payments or simply replicate existing inefficiencies in a new digital form? Alongside CBDCs comes the rise of tokenization. Institutions from BlackRock to JP Morgan are experimenting with bringing real-world assets onto blockchains. Bonds, stocks, real estate, commodities, anything that can be represented digitally is being tokenized. This shift promises efficiency gains worth trillions. Settlement times drop from days to seconds. Costs fall dramatically. Entire markets become programmable. Analysts project that hundreds of trillions of dollars could eventually exist as tokenized assets. But like CBDCs, tokenization without interoperability risks chaos. If a bond is tokenized on one platform and a real estate asset on another, how do they exchange value seamlessly? If a digital euro can't settle against a tokenized peso or a stablecoin, efficiency gains vanish. Tokenization solves the problem of representation, but not the problem of connection. Stablecoins entered this space first, offering dollar liquidity on-chain. USDT and USDC dominate crypto trading and DeFi. While Ripple's RLUSD enters as a regulated enterprise-grade option, they provide stability, but remain tied to issuers and single currencies. They digitize fiat but don't bridge fiat. This is where the concept of a neutral settlement layer becomes critical. The new financial system can have multiple CBDCs, countless tokenized assets, and a variety of stablecoins. But without a neutral bridge to connect them all, fragmentation will choke efficiency. XRP was engineered for this moment. Its design is not to replace fiat, but to connect it. It doesn't compete with CBDCs or tokenized assets. It empowers them. XRP enables instant settlement between a digital euro, a tokenized bond, and a stablecoin dollar, without requiring pre-funded accounts or slow intermediaries. It is the missing rail that turns fragmented digital islands into a unified global network. The digital shift is already happening. CBDCs and tokenization are inevitable. The real question is whether the system will emerge as a patchwork of disconnected pieces or a seamless, interoperable web. And in that answer lies XRP's greatest opportunity: to be the settlement layer that binds the reset system together. Part 3. XRP's neutral role in a reset system. When we talk about the future of global finance, one principle rises above all others: neutrality. In a fragmented world where nations distrust each other's currencies and institutions, any new system must rest on rails that no single government controls. Just as the internet connects competing nations and corporations through neutral protocols, so too must the financial reset be built on a neutral settlement layer. This is where XRP's role becomes clear. From its inception, XRP was designed to move value across borders instantly, cheaply, and without bias. Unlike Bitcoin, which pursues the role of digital gold, or Ethereum, which powers decentralized apps, XRP's function is narrow but profound. It is the bridge currency. It doesn't replace dollars, euros, or yen, it connects them. This subtle design choice is what positions XRP not as a competitor to CBDCs or tokenized assets, but as the connective tissue that makes them interoperable. Consider the problem of pre-funded accounts known as nostro vostro accounts. Today, banks lock trillions of dollars in dormant capital around the world just to enable international payments. RippleNet, powered by XRP, eliminates this inefficiency. With on-demand liquidity, ODL, institutions can convert fiat into XRP, move it across borders instantly, and convert it back into local currency. The transaction completes in seconds, freeing trapped capital and cutting costs by up to 80%. In a reset financial system where trillions of tokenized assets and dozens of CBDCs circulate, this model becomes indispensable. A digital euro can settle against a tokenized bond in Japan, or a peso-denominated CBDC can exchange with a US stablecoin, all seamlessly, with XRP acting as the bridge. The liquidity problem that cripples today's financial system dissolves into efficiency. But neutrality is not just technical, it is geopolitical. In an era where the dollar is weaponized through sanctions, nations like China and Russia push back against US dominance. Yet no one fully trusts another nation's currency to take the lead. The euro is too regional, the yuan is too politically tied, gold is too outdated, Bitcoin is too volatile. Only a neutral, decentralized settlement asset can sit at the center without threatening sovereignty. XRP, unlike CBDCs or stablecoins, is not issued by a government or pegged to one nation's currency. Its value derives from utility and market liquidity, not political decree. This neutrality allows it to serve as a bridge without becoming a tool of domination. In fact, Ripple's partnerships with banks, payment providers, and even central banks show that institutions increasingly recognize XRP's utility as a complement, not a competitor, to national currencies. The idea of a great reset requires a foundation asset that doesn't belong to any single player, yet can be trusted by all. That role demands efficiency, scalability, compliance readiness, and neutrality. XRP checks all those boxes. Of course, challenges remain. XRP's history is marked by regulatory battles, most notably the SEC lawsuit in the United States. But even here, the resolution of that case provided a strange validation. Courts confirmed that XRP itself is not a security, solidifying its status as a functional currency. In hindsight, the legal struggle may prove to be less of a setback and more of a cleansing fire, clearing the path for institutional adoption at scale. The neutral role XRP plays is not flashy. It's not the world reserve currency in the sense of replacing the dollar. Instead, it's the invisible rail underneath the reset financial system. Just as the average internet user doesn't think about TCP/IP protocols but relies on them daily, the average person may never realize their payment or investment is settling through XRP. And yet it could quietly become the backbone of global commerce. XRP's greatest power is this neutrality. It is not here to win dominance. It is here to make everyone else's system work. And in a great reset, that may be the most powerful position of all. Part 4. Risks, Challenges, and the Battle for Control. Every great shift in history is accompanied by struggle. The rise of digital finance and XRP's role in the reset system is no exception. While the architecture may be ready, the road to adoption is littered with risks, challenges, and battles for control between governments, corporations, and emerging technologies. The first challenge is regulation. The crypto industry has lived for over a decade in legal gray areas. The SEC lawsuit against Ripple highlighted the uncertainty. Was XRP a security, a currency, or something else entirely? Though Ripple ultimately secured clarity in U.S. courts, the case underscored the vulnerability of digital assets to shifting political winds. Global regulators will continue to wrestle with how to classify, tax, and integrate these assets into financial frameworks. For XRP, compliance readiness is both an advantage and a necessity. Without regulatory green lights, institutional adoption stalls. The second challenge is competition. While XRP's efficiency as a bridge currency is unmatched, it is not the only contender. SWIFT itself has begun experimenting with blockchain and central bank digital currency pilots. Projects like Stellar, XLM, aim for similar corridors with a humanitarian angle, while Quant, QNT, positions itself as the interoperability layer for tokenized finance. Even central banks themselves may attempt to build native settlement systems. XRP must maintain its first-mover advantage, proving that its utility and liquidity make it indispensable rather than optional. The third challenge is geopolitics. The very neutrality that makes XRP appealing could also make it threatening. Will the United States embrace a system it cannot fully control? Will China allow a neutral bridge that undermines its push for yuan dominance? Great powers may resist ceding control to a decentralized settlement asset. The battle for control is not just technical but ideological. Centralized oversight versus decentralized neutrality. XRP may succeed not by fighting these powers, but by embedding itself so deeply in corridors and use cases that exclusion becomes impossible. There are also technological risks. While XRP's consensus model is energy efficient and fast, the broader blockchain space faces threats like quantum computing, scalability under extreme adoption, and interoperability with legacy systems. Ripple and its partners must ensure that XRP remains not only functional, but future-proof. Any major security flaw or failure could derail trust at a critical moment. And then there is the public perception. To the average person, crypto remains volatile, speculative, and risky. Bitcoin's boom and bust cycles dominate headlines, while scams and collapses like FTX tarnish the industry's reputation. For XRP to anchor a reset financial system, it must overcome these associations. The narrative must shift from crypto as speculation to crypto as infrastructure. That transition takes time, education, and demonstrated reliability. Finally, there is the risk of delay. History shows that systems can limp along longer than expected. Fiat currencies may suffer inflation and debt spirals, but they rarely collapse overnight. The Great Reset may not come as a single event, but as a slow erosion followed by incremental adoption of new rails. For believers in XRP, patience will be essential. Adoption curves are often slower than the technology itself. Yet within these challenges lies resilience. The very fact that XRP has endured regulatory storms, market cycles, and fierce competition speaks to its staying power. Ripple continues to sign new partnerships, expand corridors, and invest in ecosystems like tokenization and stablecoins. Even as narratives shift, XRP remains in the conversation, not as hype, but as infrastructure. The battle for control of the next financial system will not be won in press releases or market speculation. It will be won in corridors where trillions of dollars move, in agreements between banks and central banks, and in the quiet replacement of legacy rails with digital ones. If XRP secures its role as the bridge in those places, it won't need to declare victory. The system itself will have chosen it. The risks are real, the challenges are immense, but the opportunity is historic. XRP stands not at the edge of speculation, but at the crossroads of a financial reset that could redefine money itself. Part 5. The future of XRP in the Great Reset. Speculating on the future of XRP is not just about price predictions. It's about envisioning its role in a financial system being rebuilt in real time. If the cracks in the old order are widening, if CBDCs and tokenization are inevitable, and if neutrality is essential for interoperability, then XRP may find itself at the heart of a once-in-a-century transformation. One possible future is the infrastructure scenario. In this outcome, XRP becomes the invisible settlement layer connecting CBDCs, stablecoins, and tokenized assets. Corporations, banks, and governments rely on it daily, though the average citizen barely knows it exists. Like TCP/IP for the internet, XRP operates in the background, quietly moving trillions while the public simply experiences faster, cheaper, more global money. Its value is tied directly to the scale of adoption. As more corridors use it, liquidity deepens and the market rewards its utility. Another future is the reserve scenario. Here, XRP does not replace the US dollar or gold, but it complements them. Nations seeking to hedge against dollar dominance begin to hold XRP as a neutral reserve asset. Its neutrality and liquidity make it attractive as a balancing force in a multipolar world. Just as the IMF created special drawing rights, SDRs, to stabilize currency reserves, XRP could function as a digital equivalent, but powered by the open market rather than political consensus. Then there is the integration scenario. In this path, Ripple's dual asset strategy takes full form. RLUSD, Ripple's stablecoin, becomes a trusted liquidity tool for enterprises and banks, while XRP serves as the bridge asset that connects it to other stablecoins, CBDCs, and tokenized markets. Together, they form a symbiotic ecosystem. RLUSD provides familiarity. XRP provides connectivity. This duality could prove to be Ripple's masterstroke, offering both compliance-friendly fiat rails and a neutral bridge to tie them together. Of course, not every future is rosy. A fragmentation scenario is possible, where geopolitics prevents global adoption of any single neutral asset. CBDCs remain siloed, tokenized assets flourish in isolated platforms, and efficiency gains are lost to politics. In such a world, XRP may remain powerful in select corridors but never achieve global settlement dominance. It thrives, but it does not transform the world. The wildcard scenario involves a shock, a global financial crisis, debt default, or currency collapse that accelerates the adoption of neutral digital rails. In times of crisis, incremental solutions often give way to radical shifts. Just as Bretton Woods followed a world war, a sudden collapse of confidence in fiat could force the world to embrace a reset, anchored by digital settlement assets like XRP, far sooner than expected. Across all scenarios, one constant remains. XRP's utility grows in proportion to the inefficiencies of the old system. The worse inflation, debt, and cross-border frictions become, the stronger the case for XRP. And those inefficiencies are not going away, they are multiplying. The future of XRP in the Great Reset is not just about speculation and market hype. It is about positioning itself as the asset that makes the system work when nothing else can. It may never be the household name Bitcoin is, but it could end up being far more important. The hidden engine of global commerce in a digitized world. When historians look back, they may not remember XRP for its early market cycles or legal battles. They may remember it as the protocol that quietly enabled the transition from the broken fiat era to the interconnected digital age. And in that story, the Great Reset is not the end of something, but the beginning, with XRP standing as the bridge to the future. Closing the Great Reset and XRP documentary history shows us that financial systems don't last forever. They evolve, they reset, and they adapt to new realities. Today, with debt spiraling, currencies weakening, and technology racing ahead, we stand on the edge of another transformation. The cracks in the old order are widening. CBDCs and tokenization are reshaping finance, and neutrality is no longer optional. It's essential. And at the center of it all sits XRP, not as a competitor to nations, but as the bridge that makes their systems work together, not as a replacement for money, but as the invisible rail of settlement that could quietly carry the weight of global commerce in a reset economy. The Great Reset is not just a theory. It is the logical conclusion of an unsustainable system meeting unstoppable technology, and XRP may prove to be the key that unlocks the transition. If you found this documentary valuable, make sure to subscribe to LTL Productions for more deep dives into the future of money, crypto, and the new financial system. The reset is coming. Don't just watch it happen, be ready for it.